Woman saves cat stuck in a jar, shocked when she sees what it actually is. Realization. The struggle had Agatha's heart racing. Getting the stray cat into her net required all of her energy. Now that it was trapped, she cautiously had to remove its head from the peanut butter jar. The jar finally popped off its head after a little bit of struggle through the net. However, Agatha's momentary joy was quickly replaced by dread as she looked at the creature's long teeth and realized it wasn't a cat. New house. Agatha knew she'd made the right choice moving to a small town in Minnesota. She was used to living in Chicago her whole life, and this was just the change of pace she needed. She could even afford a beautiful house. She felt that her life was finally falling into place, but she had no idea what difficult decision she would be faced with just a few days after moving in. Agatha Sori. Agatha Sori was a bright-minded individual who dreamed of giving humanitarian aid even from a young age. She wanted to help people more than anything. While in high school, she volunteered at animal shelters and helplines, but her biggest dream was still ahead of her. Her dream was to find a job that allowed her to pursue her passion. Straight out of high school, she found the perfect career. Psychology. She studied psychology straight out of school. Her reasoning would be that she could help troubled individuals work their way through any problems. She'd also be able to pay off the student loans once she qualified. It was a rigorous 6 years, but after getting her bachelor's degree, honors degree, and master's degree, she was a qualified psychologist ready to help anyone that needed it. Moving out of the city. 3 years after finishing her degree, Agatha decided to move to a new city. She felt she'd outgrown her hometown and looked to another state nearby, Minnesota. She had family there that told her it was an amazing place to live. She decided to take the plunge and buy a beautiful house surrounded by nature. It took a few months to move everything across, but she was excited to live in her new city. But she had no idea what would happen on this new property. Wildlife. Her new property was surrounded by nature. The small town in Minnesota seemed to offer everything that Chicago didn't have. There were raccoons that would skulk around her porch at night, and even local stray cats. Agatha would leave some cat food out every night for the stray felines. She was a big animal lover and wanted their lives to be easier, but she was welcoming something into her life that she wasn't aware of. Late night. After a busy day of seeing clients, doing shopping, and then making dinner, Agatha was beyond tired. Despite this, she still decided to work on her psychology thesis. She checked the clock after making some progress and saw it was 12 o'clock. She needed some sleep. So she put out the usual cat food and even put some peanut butter in the mix as a special treat for the strays. But she made one mistake in her tired state that she'd learned to regret. She left the peanut butter out on the porch. It was gone. Agatha woke up the next morning and got dressed. Thankfully, it was her day off and she could relax. But when she walked out onto the porch, expecting to see the peanut butter jar empty and eaten, she saw something much more alarming. The jar wasn't anywhere to be seen. She remembered that she'd left it out there, but something had happened to it. Then she heard an animal cry out for help. Trapped. Agatha whipped around and her heart sank. She saw that one of the strays had gotten the jar stuck on its head. She knew she needed help, but it was so skittish that it would run away if she weren't careful. She had to think of a plan to get close enough to get the jar off the cat's head. She didn't like leaving the cat alone, but she knew it would just run away if she tried now. She had to go get some supplies, but she was making a mistake. A net. After an hour out of the house, she finally arrived home with a large net. She would have to be quick now that time was running out. She looked around for the poor animal until she finally saw it pop up from underneath her porch. She leapt forward with the net and managed to get it over the animal. Now it was time to pull the jar off its head, but she could never have prepared herself for what happened next. Not a cat. Agatha's heart was racing from the struggle. It took all of her strength to get the stray cat into her net. Now that it couldn't get away, she had to carefully remove the peanut butter jar from its head. With a bit of struggle through the net, the jar popped off its head. But Agatha's brief triumph was replaced with dread as she stared at the long teeth of the animal and realized it was no cat. Something else. The gray animal wasn't actually a cat. Agatha's heart jumped in her throat, and she dropped the net with the animal. It scurried away from her and went under the deck. She felt like she was in a horror movie. The teeth flashed in her mind as she stumbled backward. Her beautiful home had now turned into a living nightmare. Please share this story with your friends and family.